one? That's like there's probably other brands, but it's like Kleenex, where you just call them all Kleenex.
Oh.
They're all just extreme beans.
Yeah, kind of like Band-Aids.
Yeah.
They're technically adhesive strips.
What the that's stupid.
You're an adhesive strip.
Between Wednesdays, just trying to get by to the next fix. Living between Wednesdays. Prefer the comics over the Netflix. Living between Wednesdays.
I mean, parts of me are.
Ew.
Gross.
You call. Welcome to the Sidekick Weekly, where we have a little bit of decorum.
What? I've never.
I didn't read Decorum, so.
Oh yeah,
We literally had a little bit of decorum.
Yeah, I don't know.
man.
I read it.
I forget why I'm not reading that one. I had a reason for not reading it.
There's a lot of like expository blank white pages.
Oh, is Hickman writing now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
It's gorgeous. It's a good looking book. I don't know what I'm looking at.
This issue did not follow the main character at all.
How many full-page infographics were there?
Many, and some of which were in an alien language that was never translated.
I'm gonna wait for the trade for this one. Nostalgia.
Good
pal.
lord.
Comic books.
We did read comic books.
We got a lot of classics going on here.
Yeah, look at all these.
I don't know
characters
what
coming back.
happened in here.
These fabled superhero characters.
Yeah.
We got a table full of Marvel, a little splash of DC.
We did
No
the
indie
big
books.
No, we're not
two.
talking about Vault. We're not talking about an indie horror thing. We're not talking about there's no Sean Phillips grimy, gritty thing. There's
Oh gosh.
No, we don't.
Who are we?
We don't care about indie comics at the
It's all
Sidekick.
Marvel and
We
DC,
want
yeah.
big
What happened to
superhero
us
events,
this week?
with crossovers and tie-ins, and
I
tight
haven't
little
read any
superhero
of
costumes.
Empire though.
Hmm?
I haven't read any of Empire
Who
though.
cares?
Until someone can tell me what Empire is about, I'm not even gonna.
I told you.
I-
The Kree and the Skrull have been fighting since the Stanley wrote them in the 60s. Maybe, I'm assuming he wrote them.
Okay.
And they've been at war since, but now they're not. They came together under the Hulkling, and then they're gonna kill the plant people, the Coatloxal.
Too much going on.
And but then they're actually evil, even though I lost
Stop drilling. There's no oil. Let's move over.
I lost myself in there.
Comics.
Speaking of which comics did you like?
We're going with me.
Yeah, why not?
We're going left to right.
Let's
okay.
do it.
I'm gonna go with Maestros #1.
Whoa.
I was a Hulk fan when I was a kid. I did read some of the Hulk stuff. I actually like the Professor Hulk stuff, where him and I guess he's more like the Endgame Hulk. Yeah, where the strength and the brains coalesced into one body. It's not quite Dr. Banner. It's not quite the Hulk. It's somewhere in between.
I'd say the Endgame one is thoroughly just Dr. Banner and
Yeah.
Hulk's body, but that's a beast for another argument.
Yeah.
That's
But this is like a prequel to the Maestros event that happened 92, maybe? Something along those lines, where it's a dystopian future and there's a big bearded Hulk. And he breaks the Hulk's neck when they time travel and all this jazz, and he's taking down Juggernaut and Thor and
All the heavies.
all the heavies at the time. Yeah, and that was a big deal. It was the first time you saw like a character like hold someone's shield, hold Captain America's shield that wasn't Steve Rogers, and he was holding on to a broken Juggernaut skull. That was cool. But this is a prequel to that. There's more going on, right?
I think it's a mini-series.
It's a
I
mini-series?
don't think that's a one
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. There's a big #1, so I'm assuming that indicating there's a 2
Yeah,
in the way.
they reprinted some of the original a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
To kind of get people ready.
I just hate the brown onesie that regular Hulk is wearing in the original one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get 90s comics weird fashions and stuff, but
The brown onesie is
brown. Sorry,
particularly. offensive.
Jason. Why did
that
you
was
like?
weird with the V-neck thing.
Yeah, with the V-neck that goes down to like his belly button.
Yeah.
It's a look.
It's a deep V. It's a super deep V.
But it feels very classic. It feels very like timeless. Like if you read this in '92, I don't think you would have skipped a step. I read it right now, and it didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like it was lost in time. I didn't feel like this was a nostalgia journey. It was good. It was neat seeing the in-between stages. I always like dystopian futures, so seeing the Hulk walk around one. all about dystopian buildings falling over, vacant streets during the day. We never see that. And then we get a bunch of that in this. So I'm a big fan of like decrepit, shattered, crumbly buildings with like a ship through it somehow, and like the Leaning Tower of Pisa in the background that fell over during the day. Never see it much, see a lot of it here. If you like Hulk or that other weird niche thing I just mentioned, check out Maestro's #1.
Or one more thing.
Yeah, I can say having only basically ever read the Immortal Hulk is my main exposure to the Hulk. You don't need any context to take this. I haven't read any of the classic Peter David Maestro, whatever run.
Yeah.
But this just reads like a Hulk wakes up in the future and let's find out what happens. Like, it's a good starting point for anyone, I think.
And I like that hook. We're going to talk about Wonder Woman to Earth, I'm assuming, which is another thing where Wonder Woman wakes up and it's a weird dystopian crumbled future. And like, I like that. Throw a superhero in there.
There's a way to do it in a very boring and overdone way.
Yes.
And there's a way to do it so that it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And this one has an end game, right? He becomes Maestros, the supreme leader of Earth. Like you gotta see him come there. Kind of like the prequels to Star Wars.
I'm gonna talk about this cool #1 that came out by this up-and-coming artist. If you've ever heard this guy named Todd McFarlane, he has a new Spider-Man comic out this week.
Could you imagine?
If I was that, you would have to fire me if I was.
Also, could you imagine this came out now, though?
That's still a cool cover.
It's great.
I know, but it's clearly.
It's super 90s.
It's super 90s. But
it's super.
And no one draws hands like he does.
No.
There's a close-up of a hand showing up right now on the screen.
All joking aside, today is the first time I've read that comic.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it.
God,
I'm so glad.
Because now I've watched so many interviews and I've watched Todd McFarlane documentaries and Image documentaries and Marvel documentaries, and they talk about him shaking stuff up and them saying, oh, you can't draw the webs that way. And then he did draw the webs that way. And they're like, oh, you're making his eyes too big. And he kept making his eyes too big, and how he's emphasizing the spider rather than the man. So I've read and watched so much about that it was nice to finally read it and be like, yeah, even in the Spider-Man, I've never been a religious reader of the Amazing Spider-Man, but even out of what I have read, this is so standout in just how is in the webbing and the weird hands and just the strange convoluted poses. Like, it's.
But also the ads are still in here. There's an ad for Arachnophobia the movie with John Goodman.
I know.
Right?
It's so wonderful. Get this time capsule in you. What are you doing?
I know.
If the most recent sci-fi documentary,
I have it at home.
The most recent Todd McFarlane documentary, he mentions how, like, when they gave him this book, when like, have your own Spider-Man book, this is his first published work, I believe, as an author. Like, I've never written a book before, and you want me to write a Spider-Man book? Okay.
His web line, advantageous.
I love that. And then later, he makes another mention of like, and like I said before, my webs are advantageous. It's hysterical. It's very. I can tell the plot line they're setting up because he's super prideful in this. He's very like, man, being Spider-Man's great. These thugs think they can stop me. I fought Thanos. I fought Dr. Doom. I'm so great. So I know he's just about to get the absolute piss taken out of him, because that's what happens with Spidey. He gets a little too big for his britches.
Yeah.
And then like Mary Jane leaves him, and like as somebody close to him dies, and little weird facial proportions going on in this page.
Oh yeah, but this is something that happens to him. He does the face like a box, and then he just draws in the features, but like nothing has form.
That, like, I get it's on a tilt, but that eye is much bigger than that eye. But yeah, I really like this comic, and I'll definitely be looking for more of Todd McFarlane's work.
It's nice to see, and you can actually feel like the ink and paper and pen and pencil in there. Like, oh, it's kind of, because we're getting used to that Cal Arts like smiles or triangles and like the digital look to it, that flash look.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see this.
I hate digital colors so much.
No,
they become so flat.
Yeah. Yeah. So see every fold, every line, every curve.
Sometimes too many lines,
What are you
folds,
talking about?
and curves.
No. Speaking of favorites of yours, what was your favorite this week?
I have to talk about the Ant-Man final issue. Woo! So, if you're not reading Ant-Man, this is a mistake in your life that you must rectify.
Yeah, you need to get it together.
Yeah, get your shit together. Take your shit, put it in a box so it's together, and start reading Ant-Man. No, this is a great comic. I will preface this by saying I don't normally like Ant-Man comics. I don't like Ant-Man movies. I don't like Ant-Man.
Paul Rudd.
Usually.
Oh.
But you do like Paul Rudd.
I come around to Paul Rudd. I don't like Paul Rudd. But that two Paul Rudd show...
I was about to say, you keep pitching that to me.
It did amazing. But it's Paul Rudd and he hates himself, so maybe that's why. Like, he hates himself and they're both there. It's crazy.
Right.
Anyway, no, this book is about how Ant-Man's a bit of a wiener.
Yep.
And he can't get his shit together, so he lives in an anthill.
God, I love that so much.
Oh, God. And then his daughter comes around and wants to spend time with him. But he's busy solving a mystery. So they solve it together. And it ends in a gigantic boss battle style fight with like a big old bug kaiju and then Ant-Man as sort of like an Ultraman.
Kinda, yeah.
Fighting them, which is amazing and looks great. But also, Zeb Wells just like writes a surprisingly thoughtful story. Like the bugs decide to help out Ant-Man not because he can talk to bugs, but because he listens and cares when they're gone and like if something bad happens to them. I really appreciate the surprising.
Which you see throughout it. They're not just like, you can't it's not just like them telling us he cares at the end. Like all throughout the series, I was legitimately touched at how like when ants that he are carrying around dies, like he is
upset.
Very upset about it. It's very true. So
yeah, and his ex-wife is always criticizing him for stuff like this. Like, oh, you're always just like loafing around, being upset about things that don't matter. This is why he'll never be like a big player in the Avengers or whatever. And like at a certain point, he does go to the Avengers base, and they kind of treat him like that as well. But it winds up being the characteristics that make him a success at the end of the book and gain him the respect of his daughter. So I really appreciate this book. It's a lot more than you would think. Also, the art is amazing.
Yes.
And the colors are super snappy. So highly recommend Ant-Man, this Ant-Man miniseries. It's 5 issues.
It's 5 issues. You can read 5 little books.
Do you think Zeb Wells will ever write a Spider-Man comic? Because of his name and name alone, kind of sounds like Webb.
Given the tone of this book and like how funny it is, but also being heartfelt, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good fit. I think maybe Dylan Burnett should also draw that Spider-Man book.
I think he would draw Spider-Man very well.
He did in issue 3.
I remember.
Yeah, so you should check it out. Ant-Man.
It's great. That's another trade I'm going to throw at anyone. So
yeah.
You like ants, you like superheroes, you like good books, any of the above, take an Ant-Man.
Wednesday to Wednesday, I be going hard from like Wednesday to Wednesday.
Yeah, hey, pal, you got that one where Superman goes to Supertown? Yeah, I got that when it come out. I like the 4th world.